Good afternoon, everybody. May I have your attention, please? Yes, my name's Henry Neufeld. I'm head of the Climate Change Unit at the World Agroforestry Center based in Nairobi. I'm hosting this session, and we have to start very punctually because Rachel Kite has another appointment. She has to run out of the room at 5 to 5 sharp. So I want to spend no more time than absolutely necessary in introducing her, and then she will speak, and after she's spoken, we'll start the second phase, so to speak. So may I introduce Rachel Kite, who is the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and the CEO for the SC for All. Rachel, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
So I'm really pleased to be here, and this was a labor of love because I'm busy today, but I very much wanted to give support to the Bamboo guys and to the World Agroforestry Council and others, because this is a titan in the world of more sustainable development has just walked in, Pat Contoro. So there are many reasons why I wanted to be here. I was suggesting that if you want to fill the room, we have to call the session something different. Woody biomass is not attractive enough, so I don't know, 100 things you could do with a bamboo pole or something. We've got to get people in the room. This is such an important subject. So sustainable energy for all, my charge now is to provide the evidence and data, benchmark and marshal everybody around the notion that it's absolutely possible to provide everybody with clean, affordable power, and that we can do that in such a way as that we come in well below 2 degrees, and that we have zero net emissions early enough this century that we don't encounter the worst problems of very significant warming as a result of the economy that we've built over the last 150 years. And I say that it's possible to do because it is. The question is not whether or not we can do it. The question is, are we prepared to move on a pathway which is cheaper, faster, and easier, or on a pathway which is going to be more expensive, more difficult, and potentially not as useful? And I think it's really important to focus in on that being the question. And what's really important is that we understand where the critical path really lies. And, you know, in a world where 730 million, as the IEA reported in 2014, people in sub-Saharan Africa use or rely on the traditional use of solid biomass for cooking, and we have this wonderful state minister of Ethiopia here, who he and I are on the same circuit today, so we keep seeing each other. But where Nigeria, Ethiopia, DRC, Tanzania, and Kenya account for around half of the population using solid biomass, where 80% of residential energy demand in sub-Saharan Africa is for cooking, compared with 5% in OECD countries. And I could go on and I could go on. We have this, this big issue around which remarkably little attention is spent, and where there's lots of misunderstanding. One of the things that's become very clear to me walking into Sustainable Energy for All this year and building a team that can support you to go further faster is that we have a remarkable dearth of data around the consumer use and consumer preference of those people using biomass. And if we don't really understand what's going on at that end of the spectrum, at that end of the market, the solutions that may be being conceived of, and the solutions that will have to be invested in, are probably not going to be the right ones. At the same time, there are all kinds of misconceptions around biomass, and there are pieces of the argument which are getting lots of attention now. For example, I just came from an area where there's really a real fast uptake of interest, which is now around biofuels in particular as an answer for transportation solutions. But maybe it's because we're actually talking about the people who may get left behind. Maybe we're talking about the ones whose voices find it the most difficult to be heard in these kinds of places. But in Paris and in the Sustainable Development Goals, we said we would leave no one behind. And the entire social contract that Paris represents, and that the SDGs represent, can't move forward unless we can build an economy which includes everybody, and everybody's productive demand can be realized in a more equal, more sustainable life. I think there are pieces of the biomass debate which are absolutely ripe for the picking, as it were. Once we understand the size of the market a little bit better, when we really understand that while the big generation, increasingly clean generation, is coming into the grid, that if we change the way that we laid the regulatory table, that distributed and off-grid power solutions would become much more financially viable, that we already know that distributed solutions can move more quickly, so we could actually move forward the horizon that we think that we can meet people's energy needs by. So while we're cleaning up the grid and centralized energy, we're really unleashing the power of distributed energy. In that is a very big place for understanding how to convert people from, to make that biomass more clean and more affordable, and how to find clean cooking solutions for the 3.9 billion people, 2.9 billion people worldwide who don't have access to them. This is a women's issue. It is women who die predominantly within that 4.5 million people who die every year from indoor air pollution. It is their children that suffer the impact of using biomass energy in a way that isn't sustainable. And so there are so many components of this that now that we understand it more and more in the round, we should be able to tackle it. But once we understand the size of the market and we understand the opportunities, and we start to put incentives where incentives are needed within the economy and take the subsidies away that are not needed, maybe we can start to push forward. I want to also talk about the perversity in the way that we think about some aspects of carbon in the economy. So there are parts of the world, not very far from where I come from, where we burn wood pellets in previously coal-fired power stations. We cut wood down in another continent, we put it in a boat that we built specially for the purpose, and we chug it across the Atlantic, and then we truck it to a coal-fired power station and we burn it. We don't count the methane when we cut the tree down. We don't count any of the emissions moving it from Georgia in the United States through to Yorkshire in the north of England. And then we burn it and we count it as zero emissions and we subsidize it. Now, if a woman cuts down a tree to create biomass for her own cooking, that's red. Same government, same political process, same people. I said that there was a cheaper, easier, faster way to get to where we need to be. And it's going to require a policy coherence and a cogency in the way that we think. And it's going to require a discipline and a focus around making some of those political decisions sooner rather than later, because the one thing we do know is the cost of inaction is more expensive than the cost of action. So I want to congratulate you all for being on the forefront of what I think is one of the potentially easier issues for picking, but that we will have to bring new evidence and data to the table to explore the size of the market, to bring the new business models into this market. And we will have to sit down with decision makers around the opportunities to quickly bring clean energy to those who don't have it by helping them think through the bioenergy economy. I'm happy and looking forward to continuing to work with people that I respect and admire over so many years, Tony, Pat Quintoro. I hope that my dear friend from the Bamboo guy, as I call him, that we can find ways to work together. But I want to tell you that Sustainable Energy for All is now a platform where you can come and bring people together that don't normally have the conversation, the people who need to talk to each other who aren't talking to each other. We are a neutral platform with the auspices of the UN behind us, and we offer that solution framework. We will marshal evidence. We'll show you what's working, what's not working. We'll show you the progress we're making towards SDG 7 in the context of Paris. We'll try to focus in the jurisdictions on the issues where progress isn't moving fast enough. So we're at your service. Thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry I have to go. I look forward to hearing the results of your conversation. I look forward to finding ways to support you to go further faster in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachel, for the excellent talk. And we're really sorry that you have to go, but we do understand that there are many other pressing issues. And we hope that the audience will stay and continue to listen to our side event and the presentations we have, the panel discussions we will have afterwards. And so thank you again, Rachel. And let me ask Tony Simons to come forward and give us a brief introduction into the topic that goes beyond what Rachel talked about, which is the economics, the need to see the bigger picture. Tony will zoom in on looking at sustainable wood fuel cooking systems in developing countries, but also give us a broader perspective. And so Tony Simons, he's the Director General of the World Agroforestry Center. And yeah, Tony, you have the floor. 10 minutes.
Thanks, Henry. We have a slideshow, I believe.
Yes.
Hope this is not part of my 10 minutes. Of today. There were the heads of state earlier today, and you've made a very wise choice.
Okay.
10 minutes starts now.
10 minutes start now. Don't worry. We have time.
Great. So developing sustainable wood fuel cooking systems. We hear a lot about energy, sustainable energy, renewable energy, modern forms of energy. So we know bioenergy, geothermal, wave, solar, wind are sustainable. But it is only bioenergy that is renewable. Wave isn't renewable, it doesn't renew itself. Wind doesn't renew itself. Because you harness some wind, it blows more wind on the other side of the planet. I presented this slide to a meeting in Bali, in Indonesia. And everyone saw the logic, with the exception of the governor of Bali, who put his hand up and said, you know, there is another form of renewable energy, and it's called love. And given Bali is the island of love, it was pretty hard to refute that. And we have modern forms of energy. So we're going to be focusing on the only renewable form of energy. So let's look at, around the world, the percentage of population dependent on solid biofuels. And as you can see, it is predominantly in Asia and Africa. And the darker, the purple color there signifies the greater reliance. In fact, in some places, more than 95%. So it's significant. And in Africa, 80% of energy is derived from firewood and from charcoal. Staggering amount when you think about it. Charcoal is that very inefficient form of the energy. It's convenient. It's light, it's very energy dense. It'll give you a hotter burn. It was used to fuel the Industrial Revolution because you could smell iron from it. And it's enormous. There's 1.5 billion tons or cubic meters of firewood burned a year. Staggering amount, literally a staggering amount. And we look at charcoal production, it is largely East Africa and West Africa that consume most of that aspect. And the shape of that graph is almost the same as the electricity generation from biomass-fired power stations in the European Union. Those ones are the wood pellet driven ones that Rachel Kite was just speaking to us about. And one other point to take away from this small introduction is that it's a myth that charcoal is an energy source of the poor. The x-axis shows the quintile, the 20% levels for the population, with number 1 being the poorest. And you can see that charcoal and gas are the preserve of the wealthier and urban people, whereas firewood is more the preserve of the poorer and rural folks. Rural people don't turn wood into charcoal to then do the cooking. They may as well use the wood immediately. And Henry and colleagues at ICRAF published a paper recently on the potential of agroforestry in the provision, the sustainable provision of that wood fuel. So with charcoal, and it is an inefficient use of the energy, but a very convenient one, and certainly perhaps even a lot better than refining oil and shipping it around the world, is that on the left-hand side, we have the business as usual, where we'll use 8 to 10 tons of wood to produce 1 ton of charcoal. When we know with the modern kiln, we could use maybe only 3 to 4 tons of wood to produce that same. And which pathway, as Rachel was alluding to, do we want to follow? And so that's our current charcoal chain. There's going to be a test at the end of this side event on that, so please pay attention. So the harvesting, the carbonization, the burning of the wood, the collection, the wholesaler, the retail, and finally the consumption. And an improved charcoal value chain is seeking to remove that free aspect, that the wood is free, that the input side is free, and we only have to record the revenue, the financial revenue, not even the lost natural capital that we have. So Rachel and her team at SE4L are the champions of SDG 7, ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And remember that first slide of when we looked at those forms of sustainable, renewable, and modern. And modern is seen as solar and wave and wind. That's the modern side of it. And biomass doesn't really occur. It occurs a little bit there in terms of goal 5.1, but it's not something that is seen as being modern. And what other alternatives do we have? So we have 6 key recommendations to offer greater opportunities for sustainable green growth pathways through biomass energy, to improve forest management, the input, the estate, to require a shift in the perception to rehabilitate the negative image around wood biomass energy, requiring a holistic approach that considers a full production to end user cycle, requires collaboration of relevant stakeholders, and it's an absolute delight to partner in this event with INBAR, the Bamboo and Rattan International Network. And that political coordination, that signal that there will be full cost accounting, it will be dealt with appropriately in policies, because we're not going to go from 1.5 billion cubic meters a year to 0, and we have opportunities to do it sustainably. Critical success factors to make that happen. Well, I think the bottom of that slide tells it all. It's all about partnerships. It's about linking up and looking at opportunities. And because in the MDGs, we missed out on an energy goal. And we have one now, SDG 7, and how we use that to interlink with the other goals, SDG 15 on life above land, and linking those together. And it's amazing when we think about these arguments of, is it food versus fuel? Well, it's the same thing. Plants are these wonderful sugar factories that turn water and CO2 into sugar. And we talk about, what you stick in your car is called a hydrocarbon, and what you eat is called a carbohydrate. It's the same thing. It's the magic of carbon. It is that magic, that is that energy when you break that carbon bond and you release 611 kilojoules of energy. That's the magic of carbon. So when we want to say we want something, a low carbon society and a zero carbon society, we want to harness that energy in a much more sustainable and planned way. So where are we going to get the money to do this? And this is the latest bond and climate market study done by HSBC. So let's put the numbers in context. We've got $130 billion a year of ODA. Is that how we're going to pay for it, Henry? There's 118 billion in climate green bonds. There's another 694 in climate aligned bonds. How are we going to pay for it? Well, when you look at the total bond market as being 90 billion, it's a fraction. And when we look at the green bond market, okay, this is the green bond market of the $118 billion a year. You can see that agriculture and forestry is a blip. On the left-hand side, 0.1%. When we look at the multi-sector side, again, agriculture is right down there at the bottom. And our real success is going to be when we link up that energy dimension with agriculture and forestry. Those are the two partners that are just waiting for a speed dating agency like INBAR and others to join them together. And I'll leave on the last slide, Henry, that it's a delight to partner with SE4All and INBAR in this event. And we look forward to engaging with others in the audience to take this topic further. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Tony, for this insightful presentation. And we'll have questions and answers at the end of the presentations and then the panels. I suggest, Tony, you want to stay up front, or you want to? Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me take it further and introduce you to the Director General of INBAR, Hans Friedrich. Please, you have the floor, Hans.
Thank you.
And I will, hold on a second, I need to
try the other one. This, yep. We'll start in a moment. Let me just start already, ladies and gentlemen. Being introduced as Mr. Case, but I'm currently the Director General of an international intergovernment organization that is basically headquartered in China. It's an IGO of currently 42 member states around the world that have an interest in bamboo, that have bamboo and or rattan as natural vegetation. If you think about the slide that Tony showed about those countries that use wood fuel, basically these countries are the ones. Bar Canada, separate case. But 41 of our 42 member states are countries that depend on bamboo and rattan. This is basically the global spread of bamboo and rattan. And that immediately shows you that when we talk about bamboo as an opportunity for energy, we shouldn't think about Europe. And that's already one issue that should be very clear indeed. I'm talking about basically the global south in what I want to explain to you. And I want to explain that bamboo and rattan are, I think, an opportunity. We've already talked, and you've heard both from Rachel and from Tony, this fact that most of Africa depends on wood fuel and on renewable fuel. I don't know if 90% of the population is the right figure, but it's basically the majority of people. This is using bamboo as firewood, as Tony says. But we believe that there really is an opportunity to think a bit more strategic about bamboo. And one of the key things is, oops, I need to go to the next one. There you go. How can you use the bamboo? This is, by the way, a bamboo forest in China, which is sort of what they call the monopodial bamboo, very typical temperate bamboo in China in particular, although in Argentina as well. And the next one is the clumping bamboo, which is the bamboo you find in the tropical areas. Basically, each of these clumps is effectively a bamboo plant. So all these bamboos are basically grasses. And that's one of the very important issues. They look like trees, they act like trees. You can do with them what you do with timber, basically, but effectively you're cutting a woody grass species. And there's about 1,400 different species of these woody grasses. There's about 1,600 overall different bamboos. So bamboo grows throughout the tropics, and at the moment we think it's about 5 to 6 million hectares of bamboo in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. totally in the world, it's about 30. We don't know exactly, and it's one of the things, again, I think Rachel mentioned, we do need more specific information. So we're looking into a global assessment to find out what exactly we have in the world. Now, bamboos are by far the fastest growing plants in the world, and this is why. This is a root system of bamboo, and it grows, to put it very bluntly in English, like the clappers. Basically, these roots extend rapidly, hundreds of meters after a growing season. They also pack a considerable amount of biomass. Because they are grasses, when you cut bamboo, you get new growth. I mean, these two sort of pointing things are basically new bamboo shoots that will be mature full height in about 3 to 4 months. So in one growing season, bamboo reaches its full height immediately. If you plan to use bamboo for construction, you've got to leave it for about 4 or 5 years, depending on the species. If you want to use it for energy or for paper, you could already cut it much earlier. And I think one final point, which is very important, is bamboos grow in all soils. So you're not talking about using land that could be used for agriculture. No, you're using basically degraded lands, marginal lands, land that can't really be used for anything else. And you can grow bamboo. Now, Tony mentioned already bamboo charcoal. And that really is, we believe, one of the key things that we could do, because it takes that discussion about charcoal and the fact that you are talking very often about the legally harvested charcoal into a very legal business, because you're growing grass, you're cutting grass, and you're making charcoal from that grass. So this is one thing that we think is important. The calorific value is very similar, about 6,500 to 7,000 kilocalories per kilogram, which is very similar to acacia, very similar to teak. So as far as that's concerned, it's not any worse. The great thing is that bamboo charcoal is almost smokeless. It has no smell. So in a small hut, it's actually much better, much healthier. And therefore, it should really be a preferred choice for people that depend on charcoal. Why not? That's a good question. Just a few calculations. I mean, if it's true that, sorry, this is just a comparison of bamboo. If it's true that, you know, a household sort of needs about 50 kg per month, which is a study I read in Zambia, so 600 kg a year, 33% conversion rate, making the charcoal from the bamboo, means require about 1.8 tons. If one pole of bamboo, you saw the earlier slide, is about 25 kilos on average, basically you need to plant 8 clumps around a household to provide a security for that household for energy. So really, household energy. Bamboo for household energy. BB for HH. But now let's scale up that effort and think about bamboo plantations. This is China. China has planted 3 million hectares of bamboo in the last 20, 30 years. And as I said earlier, not in this kind of soils that you would use for very productive agriculture. In fact, in central China, there's a paper factory that uses 800,000 tons of bamboo to produce 200,000 tons of pulp per annum. And that is basically using production from local farmers. So they support thousands, tens of thousands of local farmers to produce bamboo for pulp. There's no reason why you couldn't produce that bamboo for power. But then you've got to not think about charcoal. You've got to think about something else. If you do that, return of investment of a plantation, this is a slide from Colombia, is quite good. It means after 4 or 5 years, you basically make a profit. And therefore, I mean, the last figure, the last row of figures shows you the total rendement at the end, the total profits in the end. This is a lucrative business, and you get return of investment within a few years. So it really is not a difficult thing to do, and it's something that we really need to promote, to see as an opportunity to deal with this energy crisis. If you use bamboo plantations for energy, you need to think about this, not about bamboo charcoal, but about gasification. And again, thinking about general calculations, 20 to 50 tons of bamboo per hectare is sort of the yield you get. 1 kg, 1.14 yields a kilowatt hour. So basically 10 hectares would provide power for a community of about 1,600 households. So with a gasification plant, you could actually use bamboo as a source of energy off the grid, local communities. And this is the kind of stuff, I see my colleagues from Indonesia there. At the moment, these are things that are being developed in some of the smaller islands in Indonesia that are not on the grid and will not be on the grid for a long time, to provide them with a local source of energy using their natural bamboo and planting additional bamboo managed by the community, sold to the company, changed into electricity that will then fill the community. A wonderful little loop, very sustainable, using bamboo as an energy source. Very last, I said bamboo is not an issue for Europe. But coming back to what Rachel said earlier, at the moment we are transporting wood chips from the US and from other places to Europe because there isn't enough bioenergy in Europe. I don't want to say it's a solution, but it is a very interesting and tantalizing thought whether if one imports fuel from other places, is bamboo another option to actually start thinking about importing bamboo chips? I don't want to say this is a solution. I'm saying it's a tantalizing thought. So conclusions. For me, the main thing is in the Global South, bamboo really is a source for household fuel. BB for HH, a bit like SE for all. Bamboo plantations, I think, are a real opportunity for local communities, especially in Africa. Europe, I leave that for further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans. Maybe you want to join us also here on the panel. And what I'll do next is to call Pakuntoro Mancuso-Broto, who is the chair of the steering committee for Tropical Landscapes Finance Facility in Indonesia, which is a $1 billion fund that he's managing and leading. And he will give us some thoughts, maybe a bit broader, also bringing in the Indonesian perspective, going beyond only wood fuels. Pakuntoro, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This is meet in this COP22 because it's a kind of an eye-opener for me. I come from Indonesia, it's already mentioned by the moderator, but all things about bamboo is new for me. Especially you mentioned somebody sitting in the back who has some experiment in growing bamboo in smaller islands and then produce gasification from that bamboo plantation. Never heard about that. So I thank you for inviting me. And Hans, thank you. I really appreciate. And all the figures coming from Hans and from Tony is something that is really valuable for me. It must be a surprise to all of you because 15 years ago, I was the Minister of Energy. And at the time, we are focusing more on oil and gas. How many minutes do I have?
5, 10.
No, please, come on. Give me a limit. Otherwise, 5. I can talk for many minutes, okay? 15 years ago, I was a Minister of Energy. And at that time, I was focusing on oil and gas because 15 years ago, Indonesia was a net exporter. And 15 years ago, we were part of the OPEC. Now, not anymore. We joined OPEC recently again, but not basically as an oil exporter. We have to change our policy. Since our oil is depleted, gas can be found in difficult region, eastern part of Indonesia, deep sea, transportation problem of this gas, and if you convert it into LNG, transportation problem of LNG, it's also a barrier for all of us. So recently meaning just 2 years ago, we start to introduce the so-called Bio 20. That means that all transportation car have to use 20% of biofuel. And basically all this biofuel comes from the palm oil product. The problem that now is faced by New Delhi, in which the air pollution, the emission rate is unbelievably 700 ppm, and they have to close down so many schools for several days. It reminds me of the situation in Jakarta. But this problem in New Delhi is a landlocked. But in Jakarta, actually, the level of emission is not as high as New Delhi, but it's just a matter of time. It can be also reaching the level of New Delhi. Why we don't have that problem? Because Jakarta is in the coastal area. So a lot of the emission that is produced by the cars in the urban area of Jakarta are by the so-called the wind blown to the sea. What I'm trying to say is that Indonesia is an archipelago. So that means when it comes to biomass or renewable energy, then transportation is a real problem. All the islands should be a standalone producer and consumer. That is the basic. So that's why I welcome so much all these new ideas with regard to charcoal, bamboo, charcoal, bamboo gasification, these kind of things, because it is the future for Indonesia, especially after Indonesia put a policy in which in the year 2025, 20%, 22% of our energy should come from the renewable energy. Question is, how can we reach that very high ratio? Now it's around 6%, 7%. Just in a matter of less than 10 years, we have to achieve another, how many percent? 40% for 18% to reach 22% target. It's a very tall order for us to achieve. Bamboo is one solution. And all this data coming from you, Hans, is really new for me. And I'm so remarkably surprised with the productivity in generating or as a source of energy. That is something that I like to welcome. The question now to Hans is with regard to bamboo as a grass. If you plant bamboo for 3 million hectares, say, what's the difference of having a 3 million hectare of palm oil? Same, monoculture. What about biodiversity? 3 million is a huge amount of piece of land. And if you plant bamboo all over that 3 million, what happened with the animals, the birds? I understand that the more bamboo you have, the more snakes you have. So we can only have snakes in the bamboo area. But what about the other animals? So that's the question that I like to raise to Hans with regard to this biodiversity things on the bamboo. But again, Hans, Tony, I congratulate you and I'd like to thank you so much that you gave me an eye-opener this afternoon. And I really enjoy your presentation, especially your figures. That is something new for me. I thank you so much for the opportunity.
You want to sit here, please? Go ahead. Give the question. Thank you very much, Pak Kontoro. Okay, so we have 2 more panelists coming up. The next panelist I'd like to call Kari Chawicha. I apologize if I don't pronounce the name correctly. He's the State Minister of the Environment, Forest, and Climate Change of Ethiopia. Please, Kari, you have the floor. Or whatever you prefer.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I would like to thank INBAR and ICRAF for the opportunity for giving me and to share, the experience of Ethiopia, not only experience, but the challenge that we are facing. And from the challenges, there are also always opportunities that we can, learn from out it. In our case, the potential of woody biomass in Ethiopia is still high, where more than 90% of energy sources is still mainly from wood fuel. As we all know, and as has been said from the earlier panelists, is that wood fuel is unsustainable, and it's the second driver of forest loss and forest degradation. In fact, the first one is agriculture in our case. Woody biomass continues to be a main source for some time because of the economic structure of our society, especially those who live in rural setup. They are so scattered, and to avail, other on-grid energy source is not feasible within the short period of time. So having all this into account, the government has decided at policy level, which we call the Growth and the Transformation Plan for the next 5 years, is to cover about 1 million hectares of land for woodlots by mobilizing, the effort of smallholder farmers. As I said, there are challenges if we move this way. The unsustainable practice of wood fuel collecting of this wood leading to deforestation and land degradation, which deteriorates from time to time our forest resource base, and leading to apart from the degradation of forest and land degradation, it will affect the health and the livelihood of mothers and the children, and affecting especially the respiratory tract infections. So there is a challenge of highly degraded land requiring reclamation, and the technologies that we are using today are so traditional one, where we need to improve and to make it appropriate so that we can modify it. Furthermore, the fast-growing species in Ethiopia case are so limited, and so to have a sustainable kind of woody biomass as energy source at household level is challenging. As a way forward or future outlook from our perspective is there is high need to have fast-growing trees for its watershed management, which will bring about a number of co-benefits in terms of ecological value, economic value, and the social value. And technological aspect is also very important for us. Technologies which are appropriate to our context that best fit and solves the problems of our farmers, especially people who live in rural setups. It's also imperative to have strong collaborating and partnership modality, be from international level and from local, and the networking to mobilize more resource, more technology, research and development, as have been presented by colleagues earlier. So it's imperative to have a strong partnership and working in collaboration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kari. As our last panelist for this afternoon, I'd like to call Emmanuel Tiki Obena, who is the national focal point for climate change and environmental protection of the Environmental Protection Agency in Ghana. And he will make the final panel statement. And then after that, we'll have a round of quite a bit of time for questions and answers. Please, Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I thank you very much, INBAR in Ghana, and also making Ghana one of your projects study sites in Africa. I'm actually standing in for my colleague, Michael, who, for a very important reason, could not be here with us. But he's leading the bamboo project in Ghana. But with his collaboration at the ministry, the Ministry and the Environmental Protection Agency in Ghana, I'm here to present what we've done so far as the country is concerned, but a very, very short one. Actually, bamboo has been used for both domestic and industrial purposes so far as Ghana is concerned, for fuelwood and also for furniture, among others. But actually, when it comes to promoting bamboo as a sustainable source of energy, came through collaboration with INBAR and also our Sustainable Energy for All, which through these initiatives, we have been able to incorporate bamboo as a real sustainable biomass energy in our nationally determined contribution. I'm talking about the NDC. So Ghana, as of today, we've been incorporating use of bamboo in our NDCs through the energy saving cook stove. So formerly, as we are using bamboo in the traditional way, now we are going to use energy through energy saving cook stove, as it has been mentioned, by turning to going to save energy and save energy so far as Ghana is concerned. And this has been very, very important because when you look at Ghana, we normally use trees for fuel, both charcoal and firewood. And this constitutes more than 70%, as has been already indicated. And also, the use of trees also result to a lot of deforestation, as was also mentioned by Ethiopia. It's also a great issue. So it's very, very important to now consider bamboo as an alternative source of energy that will go a long way to help us to get the goal, our mitigation goal. Ghana, we are supposed to mitigate our emissions from 45%. And through this project, it's going to help us, or it's going to contribute in the reduction of this mitigation actions. So this is very, very important. And this has been considered just because bamboo is very fast growing, and bamboo is also, as it has already mentioned, grows both in degraded lands and marginal lands. So this is very, very important. And even looking at the adaptation fund, bamboo has also been considered as a species, a fast-growing species, which is going to be used to restore our river basins. So all these things are the basis that are going to help us in sustainable development, and also a scale bamboo production, which is going to help us in reducing energy and in helping to reducing deforestation, and also going to upscale energy use and also reduce emissions that will go a long way to reduce poverty and enhance sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. So we've heard from Rachel, from Tony, Hans, Paconturo, Kari, and Emmanuel, different perspectives of the use of biomass, energy, bioenergy in renewable and non-sustainable ways. It could be renewable, it could be sustainable as an energy source, but very often today we find that it is not sustainable, that it's actually leading to more degradation. And this is where a lot of the controversy is coming from. There's a lot of discussions at highest levels considering the fact whether biomass energy is sustainable or not. And it really matters how we manage these systems, whether it is or it is not sustainable. And we've seen the emissions embedded in the trade, the transportation of woody biomass across the Atlantic as means of showing that it's not sustainable. But if we manage the systems more sustainably, it could be. And we at ICRAF and at INBAR, we believe that it is necessary to look at the situation we face today, which is under a business as usual scenario. We will have continued use of charcoal and biomass energy, a growing use of charcoal and biomass energy that will eventually lead to deforestation and forest degradation across the landscapes, which we are already seeing. And we have an opportunity to change that around, to turn this into something that is sustainable, that leads to more income of farmers through improved kiln technologies, through improved management of agroforestry systems, including, of course, bamboo as one fast-growing species, but not only bamboo, and then improve cook stoves in the urban areas, and connecting these different elements from production all the way to the consumer. That's the challenge of making that work. And then in the developed world, in industrial appliances, we need to find ways of doing something that is, as Tony showed, the same curve ultimately. There is a strong demand for biomass energy, and yet it needs to be managed in a sustainable way. So these are sort of my summarizing words for what we've heard so far. And I'd like to open the floor to questions or comments that you might have that you would like to direct. And then please introduce yourself when you speak up, please. So I will take 3 questions and then we'll have a round of responses. Please, sir, you have the floor first, and then I see you, and then you, sir. Please. I don't know if we can get some microphones on the floor. There's a microphone coming around over there. Please, sir.
First of all, I would like to appreciate all the presenters for their really insightful ideas. But in most countries, we are still struggling with ideas, beautiful ideas. I mean, the challenges on the ground are unmeasurable. So we have, as His Excellency described it, we have highly degraded land, which has to be rehabilitated before we plant any kind of plant, be it bamboo or tree or anything. So, I mean, the effort required is extremely huge. And Ethiopia has been, of course, working on mobilization of its people in watershed development. So our concept now is that we don't do watershed only for 1 or 2 purposes. We have to have many benefits as the costs are extremely huge and they should be sustainable. If we have bamboo as an addition in Ethiopian highlands, it is a big benefit to our country in our watershed development, because 1, as we have seen, we can use it for traditional energy uses, charcoal, biomass. We can even gasify it, as Tommy said. It is really, in the near future, we might be dependent on the traditional use, but in the long term, we might transform them into modern source of energy. The scale I am talking about is millions of hectares, as His Excellency stated. If we do, of course, watershed development using bamboo or any other fast-growing plant, we are also sequestering carbon, or at least we are able to use clean energy. This is another benefit, climate benefit. And if we have a well-protected catchment with bamboo or other plants, we have a very good functional hydrological situation where our rivers will flow from year to year. Irrigation, food security, hydropower, another source of energy. So it is, I mean, it could be transformational. Yeah. Conceptually, it is a very brilliant idea. But how can we realize that? Is our biggest problem. The challenges we have, we don't have really good species that grow in our degraded environment. Even if we try to develop terraces, structures for containing the soil, the water, still it's hard to get plants that can grow in that kind of environment. So technologies of such kind are extremely important. The other challenge His Excellency raised is actually technically silviculture of any forest species is not so much advanced in many, I mean, poor countries, least developed countries. So technical support training, if you don't really training the young people who are working in the villages, don't expect anything to come out. We have seen it. We have tried the last 5 years. In fact, since Ethiopia Millennium in 2008, a lot of effort has been done in watershed management, but the results were not as expected. What is missing? Institutional capacity, technical capacity is not there. So I think Africans should be supported really in terms of also developing the human capacity there. We have also, I mean, a number of constraints, finance. You know, Ethiopia is mobilizing its population now for free labor, but does it continue? Is it sustainable? I think we need to, in a way, change it into a business case, paid labor. For that, we need resources. And poor countries like Ethiopia doesn't have money to invest in this kind of effort, because education, food security is very important. I'm sorry, I'm going to finish.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And
So my question,
okay, you have a question?
Yes,
And introduce yourself afterwards, please.
just to tell me, are there species that can really grow in a degraded environment in China, which can be actually introduced to Ethiopia? This is our, at least, immediate need. Thank you very much.
Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Itabutu Mogas Ababa from Ethiopia, National Red Plus Coordinator. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you could hand the microphone to the back, to the gentleman in the back.
Still from Ethiopia.
I had him first, but I think maybe we'll just switch it around because it's closer. Please, sir, you had a question.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I appreciate the panelists for giving insights, the country experiences. I have only one question. My question is coming from the multifaceted economic advantage of the bamboo, and also which is in contradiction with the speaker from Indonesia about the negative impact of bamboo when it is at large scale for commercial purpose. So meeting the economic benefits as well as addressing the negative impacts on the ecology, particularly on the biodiversity. Is there any management option to maintain the economic advantage as well as addressing the negative impact? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, we have one more question, then we'll have a round of responses.
Thank you. My name is Arif Rabik. I'm from the Environmental Bamboo Foundation in Indonesia. My question is to both INBAR and ICRAF. I guess building on Pak Kuntoro's point of the 3 million hectares of monoculture bamboo, just want to ask the question, is there any research into agroforestry mixes with bamboo for energy? And also, can you have a dedicated agroforest for energy? Or is it still a kind of mosaic landscape approach? I guess that's a bit leading, but I don't mean it to be. And I guess building on that first question, I guess it's not just a question of biodiversity that's the issue when you have 3 million hectares of just monoculture bamboo, right? There's other issues, and maybe any comments on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I suggest we do is we start here on my right and then just move through so that the panelists have an opportunity to respond to the questions that they feel comfortable with. Is that okay? Please.
Okay, thank you very much. In fact, most of the questions were to other panelists. As I said, one of the challenges that we are facing is we do have a limited species of fast-growing trees or various kind of species. It's good that we have heard today the bamboo species is one of the fast growing, and there are traditional kind of domestic species of bamboo in our country. But the issue of value chain linking with market value and creating more enabling environment in that regard is not as such at scale. The good thing is now we have been working with INBAR to establish a center of bamboo in Addis, which will have several co-benefits that can serve the interest of the nation and beyond the region in terms of experience sharing, in terms of technology, exchange, and a lot to learn from that end. But more on further partnership is very important in terms of mobilizing resource so that our farmers, our householders can benefit from this the late coming and the contemporary benefit, which will derive from out of poverty, at the same time benefiting to the ecology, which is mostly degraded, and the potential is there. Thank you.
Thank you. Akuntoro, please.
When we talk about renewable energy as a new source of energy, from my point of view, coming from Indonesia, an archipelago, then it all has to go through phases. As I mentioned, that before the year 2000, we were oil exporter. So between the 40s and 90s, we were rich in oil, and we don't see other alternatives. People, even in the villages, were using kerosene to do their cooking and other essential stuff in their household. I don't have the statistics, but I believe during that time, deforestation is very limited coming from the household need. If there's deforestation, it's because of the palm oil expansion and other pulp and paper and other commodities. When we are not anymore as an oil exporter, then we have to change the kerosene, because we cannot produce kerosene cheaply for the people. And then we change it into LPG for the household. And it was successful. Although changing from kerosene to LPG is not an easy, culturally it's not an easy process. But that's the way we did. And then now we still produce gas, natural gas, but we have to produce more, because the need from the household is now in head-on competition with the need from the manufacturing sector, which also needs gas. So these are the things happening in Indonesia, and that's why we are forced to go into renewable. If there's no emergency situation like this, we never think about renewable. Now I believe when it comes to renewable, I keep on mentioning this to my fellow ministers in Indonesian cabinet. Stop romanticizing this renewable thing about sustainability. If you want to change it. To what? So there are so many alternatives in a tropical area like Indonesia, tropical archipelago like Indonesia. Palm oil, there's alternatives. Now bamboo. Before we understand we have wind, photovoltaic, we have so many alternatives. So now actually is just do it. The question now is the regulatory framework that limit this. And this is something that we have to fight. Because the regulation in Indonesia gives the authority to produce electricity to the state-owned company. Only one state-owned company for an archipelago from tip to tip is just the same as from Washington, from New York to San Francisco. 2/3 is water. How can you manage these kind of things? So we have to change this regulatory framework. And this regulatory framework does not go only for the generation of power, but also in the using of renewable energy. So these are the challenges that we are facing. We have to list them one by one, and then stop make some romantic things about renewable energy. Just do it, change the regulations, and what to do with bamboo, what to do with palm oil, what to do with other type of, what do you call it, charcoal or this kind of things. What to do about that, one by one, and then you can solve the problem. Well, I don't know much about bamboo, so I'm really surprised. I come from a country in which there are ample of bamboo. In my yard, there's bamboo, but I never realized that you can use bamboo as charcoal. Never. I have in my mind that bamboo can be used as energy by, what do you call it, transforming into charcoal. So thank you so much about this. So maybe one day I'll visit your bamboo park or estate in China to learn about this. But one thing that I'd like to also have your response on this is about the biodiversity. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Pak Tantoro. Yes, do you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to touch on the question of my friend from Ethiopia, which he was talking about how we are going to use the bamboo for water resource development and how possible are we going to realize it. I'm actually going to use the Ghana example. Actually, Ghana, we are using our adaptation fund to actually restore river basins. And one of the things we are doing is use bamboo to do the restoration. And silviculturally, we are actually not going to plant bamboos as a plantation, but we are going to do what we call the enrichment planting. So we are going to leave the 50 to 90 meter based on the size of the river and actually incorporate bamboo or commercial species. Actually, it could be commercial species, incorporate commercial species at where it's degraded. So this is how we are going to use it, and then manage it through tinning, where it is going to serve as a community resource. So it's going to have a protection area along the river basin. This is very, very critical because Ghana, the Volta River is a source of our hydroelectricity power for most of the West African countries, especially countries around bordering Ghana, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina, among others. But due to climate change, among others, the Volta River is really dwindling. So we are using this to really restore the basin of the Volta River. And when it comes to the use, so this will be a community resource where the community will also be allowed to use sustainably. In Ghana, bamboo is used for make of furniture. So we'll encourage them, we'll build their capacity to at least sustainably use this bamboo, which is innate as a commercial species for making of furniture. And it can also be used for actually fuelwood, but in a very minimal manner. So this is how we are planning so far as use of bamboo in the Water River Basin or in the riparian basin is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hans, please.
Thank you. Let me first deal with Pak Tantoro's issue about biodiversity. don't forget, bamboo is basically the forest that supports the giant panda. It's the forest that supports the mountain gorillas in Uganda, the bala monkey in Ethiopia, the lemurs in Madagascar. So in fact, bamboo is very important for biodiversity, just as a species. But I think what is important when we say 3 million hectares, China is an enormous country. We're not looking at one plantation of 3 million hectares. We're looking really at the landscape approach. How can you incorporate bamboo in the landscape? Give you an example. In Colombia, the coffee region of Colombia basically is an intercrop system of coffee and bamboo, where the bamboo is used in some cases for shade, but more so for construction of all kinds of infrastructure in that coffee region. In China, bamboo is very often planted around tea estates as basically windbreaks. Ethiopia is actually using bamboo in its new sustainable land management program, which is sort of a Terra Africa supported program on land and water management. And SLMP2 has specifically identified bamboo as one species to be looking into. You have 2 endemic species in Ethiopia, the highland bamboo and the lowland bamboo, and 6 introduced species that were introduced decades ago and are now really considered to be almost natural. I'm not sure when an introduced species becomes natural. It's something that Tony can say more about. So, yes, I agree. Just a pure monoculture plantation is, of course, not a good biodiversity hotspot. But the great thing about bamboo is that you can intercrop it. Bamboo is used very often as a species to grow to grow other crops underneath, and therefore it's unlike, for example, eucalyptus does not actually have poison, let's say. Bamboos help you to restore degraded soil. The bamboo leaf, the bamboo litter that falls throughout the year brings back organic matter. And we've got experiments in India where totally devastated land was brought back into operation, back into production, and is now a green area, having used bamboo as a pioneer species. As far as the question of research on agroforestry for energy, I think that's certainly an area that we would like to know more about. And that is why we're very happy that today we will actually be strengthening our relationship with ICRAF, because I think this is where ICRAF knows a lot more than we do. We're not a research organization, but we realize that this is important. As I say, we have examples. We know of cases where bamboo is used in an agroforestry system, but to do some scientific research and get more answers is something I would really like to do with ICRAF. Over to you, Tony.
Great, thanks, and thanks to the other panel members. One of the dangers of volunteering or sitting on a panel is that when people ask you questions, they already have the answer in their mind. And what I'm trying to do is to read your minds from those people who ask questions and see if I've got the answer right. So tell me at the end of this how well we've done reading your minds. Where energy will be applicable, where it will make sense, where it will work, depends on the alternatives. And if energy is sold at 8 cents a kilowatt hour in Indonesia and 40 cents a kilowatt hour in Denmark, obviously alternatives are going to stack up differently against conventional energy and electricity. Let's recall as well, though, that the bamboo and trees are low labor enterprises. They give us opportunities for other human endeavors and also some joint urban livelihoods. And that low labor dimension and longer term time frame of forestry can be an advantage as well as a difficulty. The gentleman from the REDD+ agency, obviously you're dealing with carbon and carbon prices and offsets and other things. And I think in the same way that we try to relate forests just for their carbon content, let's not just relate the trees or the bamboo for their energy content. Because we've seen in many parts of the world where we've had a a wood fuel crisis. So we plant lots of wood fuel species, and the take-up is not really that good. And unless, of course, it's for tobacco curing or drying of tea, and then you need that estate, that large wood reserve to do that. But, you know, let's reflect as an analogy, if you allow me, Henry, for a moment on carbon. And so we're trying to save the forest for its carbon value, and carbon is the energy in wood and in bamboo. And the world has decided to price atmospheric carbon at $2 a ton. And if we priced wood energy, or we priced fossil fuels at $2 a ton of carbon, no one else would be happy. So can you imagine going to Vladimir Putin or the Saudi princes or president of Venezuela and saying, wow, just bear with me for a moment, but have we got a deal for you? Okay, we want you to dig the oil out of the ground. We want you to stick it in a 160-liter barrel. We know that has a specific gravity of 0.85. We know that has a carbon content of 83%. That's 112 kilograms of carbon. Brilliant. Per barrel. 400 kilograms of CO2 per barrel. Brilliant. And do you know what? At $2 a ton, we're going to give you 80 cents for that barrel of oil. Just lock it away for 100 years, and the 80 cents is yours. Can't give you 80 because of monitoring and reporting and verification. We'll give you 50. Of course, no one's going to do it. And until the real price of energy and the real price of land use comes out and doesn't remain hidden as a negative externality, we're struggling to deal with things that make sense. But when we have that amazing thing called chlorophyll, that's the green. We talk about a green economy. It comes from chlorophyll, Hans, as you know. And all we require is sunlight to trigger that pigment. And then we take CO2 and water and we turn it into energy. That's got to be pretty sustainable. We just have to make it work through our current structures. And the other issue is around opportunities. And I think the monoculture approach is wrong. And we see in agroforestry, mixed agroforestry systems with multiple benefits, not just for energy from individual species, are working. We have some quite large experiments in the state of Pará in Brazil, 50-hectare plots that show that mixed agroforestry oil palm is more productive from an oil palm point of view than monoculture. Slightly lower density, only 99 palms per hectare, rather than 140, which is the commercial level. But at that level of density, you get more fresh fruit bunches from your oil palm, and you get all of your bananas and cocoa and rubber and vegetables and mangoes and other things as well. So mixed systems, integrated systems, multiple purpose systems really work. And with many trees, the gasification opportunities are already emerging around the world, where a species will bring fertility to the soil, will bring fodder to animals, and a byproduct of that, it can be used as well for gasification. Great opportunities.
Great, thanks. Thanks a lot, Tony, for the introduction of what agroforestry can do. It's all the magic. We have some more time for another round of questions, but I would ask those that would like to ask a question to be, short and precise, and to indicate your name and your institution when you ask. And then after the second round of Q&A, we will have a ceremony, and Hans already alluded to it, of signing a memorandum of understanding between INBAR and ICRAF, and then we'll get there after the second round of questions. So please, and after that, we will have a small reception. So please do stay on and don't run away just after this session. So is anybody interested in giving another statement, short statement, or a question? I see one gentleman here in the back, and then another gentleman right next to him. The gentleman here, and please introduce yourself.
My name is Gordon Coero. I'm the Executive Secretary of the African Forest Forum.
Oh. I couldn't see you. It's bright. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. The question of sustainability came up from the podium And I would like to just highlight one thing. It's a recurring question when we look at wood biomass energy, especially in Africa. If you Google the fuel crisis in Africa, in the 60s and 70s, there were several papers that were written about an emerging fuel crisis in Africa that come 1980, many families would not have enough biomass energy for cooking. But 1980s came, there was no crisis. We have to ask our questions, what happened? What did we overlook? The same thing about sustainability is also coming up right now. But if we look around, you'll see several African governments have now come up with policies that will guide people how to develop biomass energy, and especially charcoal and firewood in more professional ways. We have, within the forest profession, it's possible to, and it's sustainable to do that, just like we're doing for timber, for industrial timber, because this is a forest crop. And the question is, how do we handle this professionally? And also, how do we come up with efficient cook stoves for handling this? And this is something that has been going on for decades, actually. The problem is that we've been dealing with this thing epileptically and not staying on top of this issue until we have enough resolution of this issue. So I do think that if we give it more time and resources, really we can come up with an approach that makes wood biomass energy sustainable. And for the forest sector, I would urge them that right now is the best time to do it because there is high demand. This is an area where you can satisfy the energy needs of the growing urban population. And given that our cities, many, I would say over 50% of the city occupants are living in slums or something like that, and they cannot afford the more convenient and more expensive fuels, this is a market that they can satisfy. Only that professionalism in the way of producing biomass in forests, harvesting it, and also converting that into efficient energy, and also looking at the cooking stoves. And there is a lot of information on good cooking stove which is available. But the problem is research does that, government provides policies, these to the private sector. And the question is there a private sector that is actually taking this up? And if it's not, how can we facilitate it to take this up?
Thank you very much, Edwin. And please, sir, introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Peter Heimerl. I'm coming from Austria, from the Vienna University of Technology, TU Wien. And I have a question quite in line with the gentleman before me. You mentioned bamboo gasification. And my question is, do you think that the equipment used for this gasification is as efficient and as handy as it should be? And if you don't think so, what could be done? Who should get together to make it more efficient and more sustainable, more handy? And what could a technical university provide to that? Thank you.
Excellent questions. Is there maybe somebody from the private sector whom Edwin just mentioned would be necessary to see the business case of wood fuel biomass, willing to make a statement, short statement, or a question in the audience? Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody else raising their hand. So now, this time I'll start with Tony, and then we'll move quickly from left to right, so that we finish in 7 minutes. Thank you. So 1 minute roughly for your final statements, please.
Okay, thanks, Godwin. So what's the alternative? Fossil fuels. We've had 600 million years of multicelled life on this planet, 600 million years, and we're going to blow that in about 150 years. So that's a ratio of about 1 to 4 million, you know? And what that means is that we, you know, it would be like trying to get your energy needs for a whole year from 1 second. And the only reason fossil fuels works is because we've had such a long time to build it up. So what are we going to do when fossil fuels are gone? And we're going to need everything. Wind and wave and solar and biomass and nuclear, all into that energy mix and in a much more sustainable, stretching way. And the gasification plants that are already running, the pilot ones of 10 to 50 megawatts are working, and very credible engineering and electricity companies, Tokyo Electric as an example in Sri Lanka, are running these systems because they're viable. They're not mainstream yet, but remember the first mobile phones that we had, they didn't look much like this.
Thank you. I guess my point is totally agree the sustainability should be there. And as you say, we want to work on more efficient ways of charcoal production. The argument is that bamboo grows so much faster. You can harvest it after 4 or 5 years, whilst that's not the case with most timber plantations. You leave the roots in the soil, the roots actually stay alive, and the bamboo regenerates naturally the following growing season. So once your bamboo is established, it's a totally sustainable system, and it will provide you a much quicker return on investment. As far as the gasification is concerned, I must admit, as Tony says, the ones that I know of are functioning. I'm sure they can be improved. They always can be improved. And that's exactly what you need research and universities for. Thank you.
For Ghana, sustainability aspect actually comes with energy mix, as Tony said. The emphasis is now being placed on gas, which we are going to retrofit most of our sources of energy. So wood fuel is important, but it's one of the means of our energy sources. But when it comes to the efficient use of it, currently it's in our policies, it's in our NDCs, and gradually the universities are also taking it up, trying to come out with the best way, efficient way of making use of the biomass so far as wood fuel is concerned. The private sector has also taken it up because it has become a very emission option. So I know gradually things will reach there or will get there so far as efficiency is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Pak Kuntura, please.
As an Indonesian coming from an archipelago located in a tropical area, in which around 60 million hectares still covered by forest, the future of biomass is excellent. The question is, how are we going to utilize all this for the good of people efficiently and sustainably? That is something that is really important for us. I welcome the research and the MOU that is going to be signed between ICRAF and the Bamboo Foundation. Since bamboo is, well, I agree, that's the fastest growing species of plant compared with others. As you mentioned, 3-4 months, then it will have the length of a normal bamboo. And if you can utilize it right after 3-4 months after it's been growing. So I believe there's no other competitor than bamboo. The question is, how can we convert bamboo into charcoal efficiently or gasification efficiently? And I looking forward for the best result of this, such that we can implement this immediately in a country like Indonesia. I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, of course.
Thank you very much. With the concept of sustainability, we see in our case that diversifying and looking for mix of energy sources from hydro, solar, wind, and geothermal, in addition to biomass. And at the same time, this all has been included in our national determined contribution, and to regain, our forest coverage, forest coverage, as well as to make sure that it is in a sustainable manner being utilized for its multi-core benefits at all round. We have been distributing, massive cook stoves. And this has been linked at local level, what you call small and micro enterprises, where it creates, alternative job opportunity for householders, improving food security, and at large, saving the inefficient and unwise use of forest, where it can make, better benefits in an economic way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask the audience to give the panelists a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. And now we'll just move on very quickly for the signatory, the signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding between ICRAF and INBAR. And after that, immediately there will be a reception outside of this venue. So please stay on a little bit longer. And I don't have the paper here. There it comes. Joyce is handing out the important paperwork. And here you go.
Thank you so much. Thank
you. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Can we have some applause, please?
So thank you for joining us. It's often remarked at COP events, so what is Tony doing and where is Hans? And the common reply is, I craft tree solutions, Hans INBAR. And on that point of being a bar, I believe that INBAR and ICRAF have laid on a small reception to celebrate this illustrious panel and the very important topic and the signing of this new partnership agreement. Thanks.
You're all welcome.
The reception is just against this wall here outside.